Good morning and happy International Women's Day. So I'm not actually going to be talking about that today because I know that we will all be celebrating it in our own way. I want to actually be talking more about sales, and I'm talking about how you as a business are leaving money on the table. Yesterday I was talking about how, as part of a lack of a marketing strategy, you could be leaving money on the table. Well, the next part is in relation to the sales process. Marketing and sales very much go hand in hand. So you could spend all of that time in generating leads into your business, and you've got all of the marketing strategy, but then they don't actually convert to sales, or you have a limited amount that convert to sales. And one of the biggest things that I see as to the reason why sales are not converting is a failure to follow up. And follow up is so important. Whether it's a case of you're out networking, talking to people, and you're following up after meeting someone, whether it's a case of you've met a potential client and they've asked you to quote, making sure that the quote goes out promptly, and then after that quote has been sent out, what are you doing to follow that quote up? Because I've actually heard it before where people are taking too long to get the quotes and they then go elsewhere. Or the fact the quote goes out and they might have a number of questions, but nobody's actually taking the effort to actually address those questions. Or even a simple thing is the fact that you are demonstrating to your prospective customer that you actually care about their custom, that you want to work with them. And the way that you do that is making them feel appreciated. And follow-ups are all part and parcel of making your customers feel like they're appreciated, that you do want to do business with them. And the thing is a follow-up process can be actually relatively straightforward. It can be automated. So, for example, you could literally have an email sequence that once a quote goes out, what you do is literally a day after, you send an email that simply states that we hope you've received the quote okay. If you've got any questions, then please do contact us. In the meantime, we will give you a call on such and such a date at such and such a time, just to address any questions you may have, right? That way, then you're actually you're being accountable. You're actually saying to them that if I don't hear from you, we will be in touch. And this is a very simple email that you can then send out to your prospective clients once they've had a quote from you. And then what you do is you can then complete them in the sequence, and you make sure that you have those follow-up calls in the diary. And one of the questions that I'm often asked is, well, how many times do you follow up? And I was speaking to a guy that I know through my coaching program that I'm a member of. His name is Anthony Sears, and he's the telephone assassin. That is his brand. He's the telephone assassin, and he's absolutely brilliant. And one of the things that he turns around and says is, you keep following up until you don't want them as a customer. And I think that's quite an interesting concept, because I think it's quite easy for you to just stop following up. Now, if obviously the customer turns around and says to you they've gone elsewhere, then that's different. And then you would stop following that up. But there is no reason why they couldn't then be in what's called your long-term warming up sequence, which is where basically they're getting the value from you, they're hearing from you, whether it's a newsletter or however you do it, because you're keeping in touch with that person or that business, because ultimately they may then need you in the future, but because you've maintained that relationship, they're more likely to come back to you than maybe even the person that they have originally used before. So, there is so many ways in which you can potentially stop losing the lead altogether. And, yes, it may, in terms of go from being a hot lead to a warm lead to a cold lead. But the thing is people want communication. They want to know that you value them as a potential customer. And by making sure that you have a follow-up process where you literally send an email, you put a phone call in, you have a number of different emails, you call them. Now, you don't want to harass them. So in terms of, depending on how quickly they potentially want to actually turn the, to how quickly they want your service or product, that will obviously depend on how much you potentially follow up. But you might only want to call them once a week to follow up. It might be a case of it's suitable to call them in a couple of times in a week. But what you don't want them to do is to feel harassed by you. But whenever you then do follow up, you're then turning around and saying to them when they can expect to hear from you again. And you can then, if you have followed up, say, for example, you've sent 3 emails, you've done 3 phone calls and you're not getting anywhere, you can then potentially say to them, well, something along the lines of, I'm not sure if you still require our service. I will keep following up with you until I hear that you no longer need us. That way, then it pushes them into action. And this is something that the telephone assassin had said to me, because, I also, there are things that I'm always constantly learning about how I can improve my systems and processes. And the more that I improve them, the more I can teach you guys. So, you keep following up until somebody turns around and tells you they don't want you to follow up anymore. And you put them in a position where they have to communicate with you to turn around and say they no longer want your services, or yes, they do, but they've put things on hold, or yes, they do, they want to proceed right now. And that whole process is absolutely crucial. But the thing is the follow-up side of things doesn't just stop once you've gained the sale. It's actually making sure that even once they've become a customer, that there is a follow-up process, that they feel like they're a valued customer. And then even, for example, if it's a one-off product or service, that actually even afterwards, that you then do like an after sale where they potentially, depending on what you sell, that potentially they can become a customer again. So you don't just want it to be a one-off, they work with you. You want it a case of they potentially will come back to you in the future. And if you can maintain that relationship with them, then you have got a greater chance of doing that. And a lot of these things can be automated. So if you are interested in finding out how you can improve your sales processes, how you can set up your follow-up sequences, etc., then the key thing I would say is make sure you get a discovery call booked in with me. I will add a link into the comments. I appreciate sometimes I forget to add the link in after I have done my live, so I will go back and make sure that that is available for you. But if you want to find out more, it's a free call. It's just literally a case of finding out a little bit about your business, how we could potentially work together, whether it's a right fit, that sort of thing, and then we can go from there and explore. So yeah, make sure you get yourself booked in. If you particularly want to learn about your sales processes, whether you want to learn about your marketing in terms of if you've got no specific marketing strategy and that's something you need to work on, as I discussed with you guys yesterday, that this is all forms part of our framework, the Business Fixer Toolkit, because ultimately marketing and sales are the bread and butter of you being able to generate money into your business. Without those things, you don't have a business. So thanks guys for listening. Hope you've got some great value, and I will see you all very soon.